I'm gonna stay here. Blondie would approve if she were here. Just keep looking out, wishing I could see a moose and kind of knock off the wish list for Vermont. So I am pretty much positive that Jen and I camped in this exact same spot in 2001 in pretty much identical circumstances. We were here after dark and we just happened to find this running off and went, ooh, this works. I keep wishing I had the videos downloaded from when Jen and I came through here in 21. There's been a lot of trail miles between this and that. I was having a heck of a time finding a campsite last night. Past the shelter had a ton between the shelter and that tower. There were some really nice ones, but of course I didn't have water, so I needed to at least hit the water source at the shelter, and then afterwards it was all dense vegetation. I saw one or two things I could have probably made work, but they were going to be pretty iffy. I actually ended up delaying another 15 minutes or so this morning for a charging issue. My phone is obviously the main thing that I focus on getting charged every day, and I always do that in the morning. Reason being, I am paranoid about having it plugged in overnight. Combination of issues. I mean, first off, you want to make sure and unplug it at 70-80% because it's a lot less efficient to charge it above that. And the other thing is I am often exhausted when I get into camp, so I have fallen asleep before with it plugged in, and most of the time that's okay. It fills up the phone and then it stops. However, years ago, I think this was actually one of the trips right after I quit my job, and I just noped out to the Sierra for a while. I actually had to come out early because I plugged my phone in overnight and it drained the battery completely. This was the days when I was carrying a single 20K battery, and so, you know, I had one full phone charge and that was it. And for the type of trip I was doing, map and compass wasn't going to cut it, so I ended up exiting early as a result. And ever since, I always try and just charge in the morning. The other two things I generally have to charge are my headlamp and my AirPods. Technically, I have to charge my inReach, but considering I just send a ping every night at camp and then at need, that I only have to charge maybe once every month or two. I don't know because I just plug it in periodically when I'm in the hotel and I've never run low on battery. So my headlamp was actually running low last night because I hadn't been really disciplined about charging it. I mean, ideally, if I am in camp by 6:30, I don't really need it. I use it a little to cook dinner, but not much. If I push it a little ways, I will sometimes just use the phone light to hike by. The iPhone Pro has a pretty good reach and spread on its light, so if I'm just being lazy and I don't want to dig out my headlamp, I've gone quite a ways on that. I don't really like doing that out here just because if I trip, which I'm more likely to do if I, have my trekking poles under my arm because I'm fiddling with the phone or using the light, I might smash the screen. But when the headlamp gets low, it does what it was happening at camp last night, where it suddenly drops down and then it'll go out if you leave it too long. The AirPods are something I really like. I bought a set of AirPod Pros kind of on a whim a couple of years ago and liked them so much I got rid of the over-the-ear headphones that I had bought when we moved into the van. The noise cancellation's great. The control and connection functionality, if you have an iPhone, is the best I have ever seen. The one complaint I have with them is charging related. So they come in this case, and in addition to the battery on each of the earbuds, this can recharge the headphones, 3-4 times. And that is really convenient if I'm just running around. And they charge fast enough where if they hit low battery, I just pop them in there for 30 minutes and I'm back up to 70-80%. However, the way they connect with the case is through this little metal ring at the base stem of the headphone. And because I sweat so much with them, I actually have problem with that ring corroding and not making as good a contact. So I constantly have to double check that they're actually seated in the case and making a connection. So that's a bummer. And the other thing is plugging the case into the wall. I haven't figured it out. What I suspect is because the batteries are relatively small, they don't have the full power delivery chip. Power delivery is the functionality that lets your phone talk to an appropriate wall charger and say, oh, hey, I can handle, 40 watts instead of the yield 5 watt of those old square chargers. And certain devices don't implement that because they don't need that much power. And so you have to get something that basically slow trickles them, either run it through a USB-A or have a mode on the battery. My U-Green has a mode which will charge it slow. But for whatever reason with the AirPods, I every now and then have an issue plugging them into the wall. I haven't been able to nail it down to a certain charger, a certain behavior. Seems like it's off and on. I have had it across multiple models. Other friends that have them haven't had the issue, so I suspect it's the chargers I'm using. If they ever make a Apple brand charger that is within my range as far as what I need, as far as power delivery and weight and folding, yada yada, I might switch to that, since they tend to, even if they don't implement the standard, they implement their hardware really, really well, since they have that whole kind of vertical business approach. So this morning I just had a little bit of an issue getting those headphones up to where I need them for the day. I do have one wired pair with me. They're the USB-C earpods, basically the wired Apple headphones. Anything I've tried as far as like Skull Candy or any other brands, I just haven't had as good a luck. And I like having the little control thing on the headphones so I can stop and adjust volume as I go. So I do have that, but honestly, I hiked with the wired ones for years because I didn't want to deal with having to fiddle with another battery. And fair enough, I mean, that was an advantage. However, having to kind of deal with that wire and also deal with the fact that they eventually wear out, I have come to the conclusion that due to the videos and me having to unplug headphones all the time, I was probably basically doing like lab QA levels of stress on the hardware. I actually had an iPhone that the port was failing because I was plugging and unplugging it so much, and the Apple store was just like aghast when I went in and talked to them because that's not something they ever see. But I was taking 60 to 100 something videos a day, and often I was stopping, unplugging the headphones, talking and plugging them back in. So that adds up when you're out for a couple hundred days a year, Of course, never campsite when I need them, and then all the other times I'll find them like throughout the day. I have played around with just using the speaker on my phone. The speaker on the iPhone is on the bottom, so I can have it in my little pouch pocket. Basically, speaker's pointing up here, so I can run it relatively low. I can hear it and it doesn't bother anybody. I've tested it with Jen, and it basically drops out if I'm 10 feet away. I am a big believer in the death penalty for people running Bluetooth speakers out here, because I think everybody's had that experience. You're just enjoying being out in the woods, and then somebody's crappy music comes booming along the way. I remember early on the AT, that seemed to be major shelter drama, because you hear people approaching from like 40 feet away. Before you see them, you're hearing them as they come. So I don't want anything that impacts anybody else. Most of the time I use the headphones. The noise cancellation in the AirPod Pros has actually been more useful than I thought. It blocks enough sound to keep me sane when I'm near traffic. See the ADT last year. But it's incomplete enough that I can tell you through multiple testing, you can still hear rattlesnakes and things going off near you. One of my pet peeves is people online talking about how you should never wear headphones because of rattlesnakes and whatnot. It's like, if you are unable to hear a rattlesnake going off, and if you haven't heard them up close, they're like a very, very, very loud sprinkler. A, your situational awareness is probably pretty low, and B, you're probably doing hearing damage to yourself. They shouldn't be up that loud. The noise cancellation was actually kind of useful yesterday because I was in deep leaves for a while, and the amount of crunching was making it hard to hear my audiobook. So as of this morning, I am 23 miles from the Massachusetts border, aka the end of the long trail. If this was all I was out here to do, I would have been pushing a lot harder. Probably would have left early today and finished it up in North Adams or whatever the access is. It's not really road access at the border, as I recall. However, since the border is just kind of take a picture and keep hiking for a couple of days, and then drive somewhere and keep hiking for another 2 months, it's less of a big thing for me. So I'm just kind of keeping on. I'm going to see if I can still hit a little above 15 miles each day. See if I can build up my strength. And then when I get down to the Bent Mackay, my goal will be to kind of hit a new baseline. Though I think our initial plan is like a 95-mile food carry, which is going to be a little bit heavy. Per some locals I ran into, weather is basically the same. No rain in the foreseeable. So I will probably be dry finishing this trail. The cold snap, it's got recognizably colder, at least during the day, but I haven't seen any sign of frost or ice in the tent at night. And I have been toasty with that Western Mountaineering 10 degree. Too toasty often. So I'm actually enjoying that it's gotten a little bit cooler. My biggest struggle at the moment has just been hitting my hiker's end and losing myself versus constantly looking at where I am and the mileage to various things. This is a problem I always have when I repeat trails. I know there are people out there that just do laps on some of these. But at least for me, even if I haven't seen it for a couple of years, I still remember the highlights. And there's a psychological thing where I know that there's not going to be any major surprises. And so I just kind of focus more on what's ahead versus what's around me. And I really wish my brain didn't work that way and I could just, enjoy doing laps on some of these, but oh well. If you're talking about changing how my brain works, there's a whole laundry list of things I would probably adjust before that. So I was just chatting with Jen on the top of that overlook. When I talk about things dragging out here, it's usually a particular time of day. Generally, I get started, this time in the morning. Everything's good and it still flows for a couple hours. It's just at this point, okay, I've been out here 20-something days, and you figure 8 to 10 hours a day of hiking. That's a lot of hours. So it's usually kind of that mid-afternoon, early afternoon doldrums, and then by the time it's close to the end of the day, usually that's easier to take. It was a big struggle when I was on the PCT. I remember in Oregon in particular, because it was easy terrain, nice hiking, really nice weather, but it just felt long. And for the middle hours of the day, just a little bit dull. The thing in common with that section that I remember struggling with it the most is lack of views. Because here, like, the vegetation is pretty. I'm getting to enjoy the occasional pond or something like that, but there's much less of a sense of progress in the Sierra and other places. Even on the north end of here, you know, you pop up enough where you at least get some sense of, hey, I'm moving along these mountains. I know from the map that I'm going down a ridge line of some mountains, you know, civilization off on either side, but not a lot of context. Basically the polar opposite of the situation in the Sierra Nevada however many weeks ago. Nice. Kind of have to do my morning water stop here. Oh, gotta love the Appalachian Trail. Just ran into some guys that were running around in circles in the bushes. Didn't seem to have any sort of a map, and they'd lost the blazes. They also had massive packs, and several of them had like full-on lawn chairs strapped on the back. And I mean, I do get it. You can get away with stuff like that out here because the trail is pretty well blazed, and there are way more signs out here than most of the places I hike out west. There, you get to a trail junction. Maybe there's a sign, maybe not. Maybe that sign is accurate. I would not go wandering off into the Sierra away from like the PCT. Hell, even on the PCT without a map, personally. For once, there was actually a shelter where I needed it when I needed privy access. Today has just been going a lot better in general. Can't tell if the book's better or if I'm just in a better mood or what. I'm just kind of bopping along, and now I've got 17 miles left until the border, maybe a little less. People suck at leave no trace. But hey, if I'd forgotten my old spice, I would be in luck. Sometimes when I run into people and conversation ends up turning to, oh yeah, I do YouTube videos, and I tell people my channel name, most of the people I've run into out here, they kind of get the joke and they cackle. Every now and then I have an encounter like some folks back there where I say the name and it hits kind of with a wet plop. Okay, that was a knee creaker climb down and up from that road. That is probably the biggest climb I have left until at least Massachusetts. I don't really remember the climb up to Greylock, just remember the summit. I still have a bunch of miles I want to do today, but it is just really nice up here. Woods feel different all of a sudden than what I have been going through. Not sure what the details are, but interestingly enough, they moved one of the shelters out here. There's a bunch of notes about how the new location doesn't have tenting or reliable water. So it is around 4:30. I am under 10 miles from the border. I don't really see a reason to rush to the border other than bragging rights, since, like I said, I'm going on, and there's not camping right at the border. It does look like water is a little sparse for the next section, as near as I can tell, and I've been burned enough lately that I'm going to go ahead and filter everything here. Have to carry a little bit of extra weight over the next couple of hills, but then I can stop whenever I want. Filtering is kind of time intensive at the moment with that mini filter, so I'll probably have a little under 2 hours to go after that, and I'll just make it as far as I can. The only thing that really matters tomorrow is I'm going to go a little bit off trail to hit a grocery store. Honestly, I've got enough food. I could probably make it straight to Dalton, but I kind of like the idea of getting deli sandwiches and fresh food since I've been eating a lot of bars and whatnot. Also, if I'm lucky, I'll find something to spare me having to eat that second instant mashed potato dinner. "6:25, made it over the little peak. At this point, I'm basically just looking for a campsite that speaks to me. It's been a really nice day. Pretty much everything I could have asked for short of seeing a moose. I do like the spot, though I will say I'm pretty used to using non-ideal campsites, and this is pretty bloody bad as far as roots and everything, but I think I can make something work. Pretty spot for my last night in Vermont. Well, as they say, almost anything can be a campsite if you want it hard enough. And if your tent is on the smaller side, managed to get something where I'm just between roots, so I'm going to stay here. Blondie would approve if she were here. Just keep looking out, wishing I could see a moose and kind of knock off the wish list for Vermont. So I'm currently 0.3 from the last shelter in Vermont, and it's like 5 miles from the state border. I really wish all days on trail could feel this good.